What happens if they should release those funds, if they open that door back in? Are we talking about 22 bank runs? And they might be smaller banks, but guess what? They're intertwined with the larger commercial banks as well. And the FDIC has no money, right? They had to bail out the regional banks that failed in March, April of 2023, and they have not recouped that. So they even have just a titch over a penny for every insured dollar, let alone all the uninsured dollars. And I don't really hear anybody talking about this banking crisis that is unfolding right now.
In today's episode, Lynette Zang, the CEO of Zang Enterprises, warns of an impending crisis in the fintech and banking sectors. She highlights that many are unaware of the growing issues, especially regarding uninsured deposits and structural changes in the financial system. According to Zang, a significant shift in the debt-to-gold ratio is underway, echoing the transition from a quasi-gold-backed currency to a fully debt-based currency that occurred 53 years ago. This change marks a foundational shift in the global financial system, posing risks that few are discussing. The banking sector, despite recent stress tests showing resilience, is under considerable strain. Zang explains that smaller banks tied to the global banking network through larger institutions like JP Morgan face unregulated fintech activities, which add to the systemic risks. The current environment echoes past financial instabilities, suggesting that the apparent stability might be misleading. Zang's insights reveal a deeper, more complex issue where confidence in the banking sector could be overestimated. Zang advocates for greater self-sufficiency and resilience at the community level. She advises individuals to invest in tangible assets like gold and silver, which she believes are sound money with no counterparty risk. This strategy, she argues, is essential to protect against financial instability. Reflecting on the 2008 financial crisis, Zang underscores the importance of having physical assets to safeguard one's financial future in uncertain times. Now we'll show you the best clips of the latest interview, but first, hit the like button, smash the subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you do not miss out our daily recaps, and check our description for more info and credits. Enjoy the episode.
Think about the fact that what supports any currencies, right? It is the full faith and credit of the government. So as long as you trust them, you have faith, you will continue to loan them money, extend them credit, right? So what supports a currency is the ability of governments to create more and more and more debt. And we've already seen that started to crack. These things don't happen just like that. They happen over a period of time, so people don't realize it. But it was already the end of 2000 when the Federal Reserve first started buying U.S. government debt. Well, the 10-year Treasury, the U.S. government Treasury, is the foundation of the global financial system, at least at this point. I mean, there is so much to this story, but what that decoupling and that pattern shift means, and the fact that it is a structural change, is what supports money is now gone. I mean, it's gone. This structural shift is not something I'm waiting for. It's something that's happening right now. The general public can't see it because they're not really paying attention to it. But I've studied currencies and currency life cycles since 1987. And I'm telling you, when I saw that, I'm prepared, right? I have my foundation in sound money, and I have food, water, energy, security, barterability, which for me is silver, wealth preservation, which is gold, community, and shelter, because these are the things we need to sustain a reasonable standard of living. But the system is falling apart, and we're witnessing it in the banking sector. You know what happened in 2023? Heck, what happened in 2008? Were that those problems were not resolved, they were not fixed, they were just papered over, which actually makes those problems even bigger. And can you imagine? I mean, the Bank for International Settlements came out with a report just recently saying that sovereign debt, that's government debt, needs to beware because confidence changes just like that. And that's what we are on the brink of. So these technical pieces are happening, whether you see them or you don't see them. However, when are you going to see them? When it's too late to do anything about it. So we're seeing this in the banking sector through the fintech, which basically is pretty much unregulated, but they are tied to the banking sector through these smaller banks, which are tied to the global banking sector through these larger banks like JP Morgan, et cetera. You have them coming out and 31 banks passed the current stress tests. Isn't that awesome? We can
Yeah.
feel confident in them. But those big banks are coming out and saying the Fed stress test is opaque in areas they have no idea of how they come up with this, and they're wrong according to their own data on what their income is going to be through this stressful situation. And may I point out that in the previous stress tests, they never put in the fact that they were raising interest rates, even as they were raising interest rates.
Yeah.
Break the system.
Yeah.
In today's news recap, silver prices hit 3-week high on optimism over Fed rate cut, up 6% in July. Ilver prices extended their winning streak for the 8th consecutive trading session today to hit a 3-week high of 92,550 per kilo on the MCX as softer than expected U.S. economic data reinforced expectations for Federal Reserve interest rate cuts. Prices have rallied 6% in July so far, on track for the biggest weekly gain since mid-May. Markets are anticipating a rate cut from the Fed in September due to waning inflation, a slump in the U.S. job market, and a cooling economy. Traders are currently pricing in a 73% chance of a Fed rate cut in September, according to the CME FedWatch tool. In periods of falling interest rates, gold prices typically ascend as investors find bullion more attractive compared to income-paying assets such as bonds. The U.S. PCE index showed that inflation in May slowed to its lowest annual rate in over 3 years. Core PCE prices increased by only 0.1% from the previous month, the smallest increase in 6 months, while the annual rate eased to 2.6%, the lowest since early 2021. Additionally, U.S. job openings rose to 8.14 million in May, and first-time applications for U.S. unemployment benefits increased last week, with the number of people on jobless rolls rising to a new high by the end of June. Now we'll show you more clips, but remember to like and subscribe if you like our recaps.
Oh, it's hugely loaded with meaning, especially when you put on top of that global central banks are buying more gold than they ever have since the beginning of when they started tracking them back in the 50s, right? This is significant. 22, 23, and the first quarter of 24, that's the most current data I have on it. The most gold ever. And who knows more about what they're doing with this stuff than central banks, right?
Yeah.
So you follow their lead. But when you're talking about this, gold and silver are sound money. Physically in your possession, they are, according to the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank, the biggest, most important central bank in the world. Only gold is the only financial asset that runs zero counterparty risk. All this other stuff are contracts. And any contract, all these financial products, intangible assets, they all run counterparty risk because any contract is only as good as the counterparty to that contract. So this is your foundation for maintaining your wealth, to have a properly diversified portfolio for anything that you're keeping in the markets or in intangible, because if you don't hold it, you really don't own it. And when that goes away, well, this is what saves you and recoups those losses. But you have to have the ability, and I think, Francis, haven't we been watching around the world this rise in hunger, this rise in the inability to feed the even Zimbabwe, right? Used to be the breadbasket of Africa,
Yep.
and they've got 51% of their population that needs food aid. And that doesn't take into consideration the food aid that needs to go into the schools for the students. And that was the breadbasket. And in the US, I mean, a land of abundance. There are too many hungry people. It's ridiculous. So silver as the gold is the primary currency metal. Silver is the secondary currency metal. And it both of these straddle everything, right? So in other words, both of these are used in every single sector of the global economy. So therefore, they have the broadest base of functionality of any asset, and really equally as important, the broadest base of buyer. You go into the financial sector and it's used in one place, right? Now they've created a whole bunch of tools out of it for trading and making more of these so that every time they do this, what's already out there loses purchasing power value, which is what matters to you and me. Doesn't matter how many, I think I've got a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note here, but what can you buy with that? In Zimbabwe, I'm a trillionaire, but you can't buy anything with it.
Yeah.
So people get blinded by numbers and they miss it. But this is your foundation to protect any wealth that you've accumulated. But also, a rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. So they
Correct.
have artificially suppressed that price so that you don't see it. Yes, it's broken out recently. It has, and it will go much higher. I mean, I would imagine that we'd see 3,000 before the end of this year. But it is an election year, and there's elections that are going on all over the world right now. So I'm not quite sure in terms of Wall Street, because their job is not really to give you price disclosure. That's what it used to be.
Yeah.
Now it's simply a trading market, and everything, air.
What do you think of today's show? Do you think Zang is right and a major banking crisis is brewing right under the surface? Or is she just calling wolf to sell you gold and silver while she's fully hedged? Post in the comments section your honest opinion and share this video with a silver bug, as more people need to know. Thanks for watching till the end. And now check this video right here because it's a perfect fit for you. I see you on the other side.